back to the Invisible College. I'm Troy to the Max Extreme.
Dinosaur Neil.
And Ghost Hunter Dave, darlings.
And together, we are Imperius Rex.
We are still early into the semester in the Invisible College, and we're hitting up the second volume, covering issues 9 through 16, which feature several character-centric one-off issues, as well as the transformative origin of Lord Fanny, and it wraps up by giving us a look back at Dane, what old Dane's been up to since he cut ties with his compadres. I'm going to go ahead and take a roll call right now while the intro music plays, so everyone feel free to be on their phones or do a quick TikTok or whatever they need to do. Grab their beverage of choice.
Do a sweet TikTok.
And then we're going to continue embarking to enlightenment through academia. The Invisible College.
Cheers.
Here, here.
Drinking in school.
And so we return and begin again. The world turns our key. It's the start, it's the end. Our heads are all the same, large enough to contain the God and the devil, a palace, a rebel. Our sentence is up. It's time to go and let yourself become invisible. Create your heaven here on earth. Think if the unthinkable. Find your truth within the light. Jump off the edge and start to fly. Time to wake up, time to wake up and say goodbye.
Once again, that haunting opening track is an original piece from LA-based musician Lisa Crowley. Feel free to check out her other equally exceptional work in the description below. And also, if you haven't already joined the Invisible College Discord, what are you waiting for? Get in there, continue the discussion offline. And last thing right up top, another thanks to Patrick Meany, as his book, Our Sentence is Up, the companion piece to Grant Morrison's The Invisibles, is paramount in both understanding the Invisibles and talking about Invisibles on this show. So a lot of the thoughts that we are giving are not entirely our own. They are complemented by Patrick's work. So big thanks, and check it out if you would like to dig a little deeper down that rabbit hole.
Rubbing my hands. I'm ready to go.
You're ready?
Warmed up.
You're ready today.
I might be.
All right. Still touch and go.
Yeah.
Last episode, we meet Dane McGowan, punk asshole kid, who is, I wrote troubled adolescent in my notes, but I went off the cuff, went with my gut.
Yeah.
He was recruited into the Invisible College to combat the forces of oppression known as the Outer Church. He received magical training from one Tom O'Bedlam, who opened his eyes to a new perception of the world around him. Then he achieved enlightenment a bit, before being astrally projected back to the French Revolution in hopes of bringing the Marquis de Sade to the future to help rewrite the course of humanity and bring us all into the singularity. It's not that hard, guys, you know.
And in that same time, getting his finger lopped off and then getting pretty sour about it. Yeah.
That did happen, yes. Yep. So that's the long and short of it, folks. I mean, keep up.
It only took us 2.5 hours of talking out last time.
That's right. Yeah. Well, a lot of that was because we had to lay some groundwork. You know, there's a lot of big themes, a lot of big ideas in this Invisibles. We talked about themes such as reality versus fiction, dualism, time and regrowth, chaos and order, freedom versus control. Everything under the sun was covered in that first chunk. So hopefully with a lot of that kind of already addressed, we can just zip line into the real meat of this story.
Yeah.
Which I thought would be much shorter. My notes have doubled somehow. So we need to keep this moving. Before we get any further, Troy, how are you holding up on this?
So this one was a little bit touch and go from the beginning.
Oh my.
Wait, let's hear it.
Okay, shut up. I was telling you. So the first issue in this arc is directly following the aftermath of what we left off in the windmill.
That's right. Kind of an epilogue to what we just read.
Yeah. And it's where our old buddy Dane, Jack Frost,
Some call him.
splits. He speeds out of there on King Mob's car, and he's like, wait, my car? You mean that one with a bomb in it?
Classic King Mob.
And they're like, oh shit, now what are we gonna do? Because we have all these goons encroaching on our time machine windmill situation.
One of the Invisibles probably like, did anyone really like Dane?
Yeah!
Maybe we don't do anything. Maybe we leave it up to fate.
Yeah. And so, I want to talk about their relationship kind of just for a second. Because Jack Frost, which I'm going to call him because I always forget Dane. I want to say Dale for some reason.
Old Dane.
But Jack Frost, like, right before this whole time machine situation, seems to be getting along with the rest of the crew. Not so much King Mob. King Mob's kind of off doing his own thing for a minute. So he's got like a camaraderie build. He's drinking. He's having a good time. And then but it seems like King Mob really wants to like him or something. But he's not really doing a great job of wanting anybody to like him because he's somehow more of a dick than this kid is.
Yeah.
I can't get a grasp on King Mob at all.
So, before you showed up here to film, Dave and I were talking about King Mob specifically in that, and like, how he's not likable at all to me. Like, towards the end of our reading, towards the end of this volume, I tend to like him a little bit more. Soften a bit.
Shows a little more humanity
But-
towards his fellow Invisibles.
Yeah, he's just like, hey, old lady, just fucking tell me what I want to know, and then I'm gonna shoot a bunch of people in the face. Like,
Yeah.
and the other Invisibles are all likable in their own way, but they're all like, I don't know, Boy and
Mainly because we
Ragged...
don't get to know him.
Yeah. I would say, like, Boy and Ragged Robin are just kind of, like, always just kind of doing their own thing, just being cordial, and, like, I would just want to hang out with them because they
Sipping smart drinks.
Yeah, they're just doing whatever they want. Everyone else is having a million existential crises at any given point.
Yeah.
Boy and Ragged Robin are completely inconsequential in this entire arc, I feel like. They add nothing to it. They do eventually play a bigger role later, but right off the bat, I forget they're even there half the time.
Well, I think the book even was just like, we're just going to put in like a little Betty and Veronica type little strips in here, just so you know that they're still here.
Yeah.
They're just drinking at the bar,
Yep.
but they're still here.
Well, I would say this issue, number 9, is the most straightforward issue of this entire series. It is just like an epilogue to whatever happened in the first one, so much that I almost wish we covered it in the last one.
It's weird that it's not.
Yeah, I guess it's just the way they originally collected these in trades, but I feel like it's very out of place in this, and it should have wrapped up the last one. So, apologies, everyone. Wasn't my decision. Other than it just being kind of escape and shoot 'em up with the guards, the main takeaway, I think, is that Dane is forced to kill one of the guards, and it wrecks him. That is something that he has a hard time shaking through the entirety of this series. He has to take a man's life, and it really affects him.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, King Mob is over there just fucking gunning people down.
I'm gonna dress up in this guy's clothes and shoot everybody.
Run them over with the car, making quips, blowing them up. He is just having a blast. To the point where, like, again, you start to almost feel more humanity to the guards than I think you do some of the Invisibles. Because as they're about to storm the castle, they're like, oh my god, did you guys see what they did to some of our guys back in Harmony House? It's like, they're actually worried about this group of the heroes that we like, and to see it from the enemy's perspective, you're like, oh yeah, like, these guys are pretty rotten.
Yeah, and we'll get actually to a very specific issue in this volume that deals, like, specifically with that.
Oh yeah, yes. The only other note I have on this, which I think is one of the most important parts of the book, and it's also incredibly forgettable after you read it because you have no idea what the hell this means. It's the very beginning where it opens with a flashback. A younger, less confident King Mob is investigating a church in Philadelphia looking for the Hand of Glory.
I did forget all about
Yeah. And he's teamed up with like his mentor that they call Jonna Dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And they check out this church. They stumble on this really bizarre looking plant-based
Vegetable
creature
Yeah.
that almost looks kind of like the Great Old Ones in like an H.P. Lovecraft story. But their description of it is completely meaningless at this point in the series because you're like, I know what these words mean, but not in the order that you collected them here. So they find something very out of the ordinary, and then they go into a door. They are like struck by this light, and then, as King Mob says back in the present, Jonna Dreams disappeared, and we haven't seen him since.
Yeah.
They think maybe converted to the other side. Nobody knows.
Mm-hmm.
So you know that something happened in this church. It shook King Mob a bit. And since then, they've needed to fill Jonna Dreams' role, which they did with Dane.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that first issue, and that was drawn by Jill Thompson, who carried over from the last arc.
Mm-hmm.
After that, anything else you want to add on that one?
No.
Okay. We'll keep it moving then. After that, we jump into 3 single one-offs, all featuring different ancillary characters in this universe. Most of them seem kind of inconsequential, but it helps kind of paint a larger picture of the series as a whole and the war between the two sides.
Mm-hmm.
First one, Season of Ghouls, which features art by Chris Weston. Excellent art.
Yeah.
And he joins Morrison again for The Filth,
Okay.
which is a series that a lot of people tie closely with the Invisibles. And you know what? Maybe we'll cap off our Invisible College Book Club by checking that out.
Okay.
Oh.
Neil, I know this is a favorite of yours. Would
Yes!
you like to take the talking stick?
Oh, boy. Yes, I will have that,
All right.
please.
It's
yeah.
actually all these notes.
Oh,
I'm going to need you to
shit,
cover this
no!
in a timely, concise manner.
Yeah, so this one is awesome because it deals with, like, other voodoo magic. Even if you're not familiar with, like, Grant Morrison's chaos magic, like, most people know what voodoo is, so, like, this one felt more approachable in the magic category. It's equally as crazy in some spots because there's a Scorpion King and all of this other stuff going on, but, like, it's kind of like the plot of Get Out.
It absolutely
Yeah,
is
so
the plot of Get Out.
it's
Like 20
like-
years beat it to the punch.
Which is wild. So it's a group of old, like, high-end, like, echelon businessmen, essentially. Some kind
bunch of old whites.
a bunch of old whites that, like, found a way to
Pilot.
pilot or inhabit the minds of, like, just young, like, African-American
kids.
guys. Yeah. And then they go and do whatever they want. Like, they want all these repercussions, like, doesn't matter to them. They're not there. They'll do whatever they want. So making this bad name for, like, this community and all of this shit going on. But there is, like, one savior, like, going out there with his bone gun in hand, ready to dish out some voodoo vengeance. It's incredible.
Some swift Creole justice.
Yes.
His top hat, his skull codpiece.
Yeah. Yep.
Papa Geedy.
Yep.
Papa Getty? Jim Crow is his actual name. His fiction suit is Papa Getty, who is an actual voodoo god.
Yeah.
Oh,
And apparently it is the person that helps bring souls to the afterlife in
Okay.
voodoo mythology?
Yeah.
Theology?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I looked up a little bit because I was curious if this was a real character, and it is. It's spelled slightly different, but the pronunciation is the same, and it seems like, yeah, that's who he's channeling. Jim Crow acts almost actually Jim Crow is almost more the fiction suit for Papa Gady to inhabit him and inflict justice.
Yeah.
I don't have much to say about this one, obviously, because I'm just like,
Yeah, he did that.
I must have read this when I was very tired, because I don't remember a lot of what happened in this one.
There is a lot of really trippy, bizarre magic when he goes into, like, the alternate reality.
Yeah.
He sucks nutrients out of a UFO.
Yeah, through, like, the teat of a UFO.
Yep. He transforms himself into a scorpion version of himself when he goes to meet Baron Zaragoin.
The Scorpion King.
The Scorpion King. His bone gun, obviously, to inflict bone justice. What I did appreciate about this was that this magic is just as valid as anything King Mob does and anything Lord Fanny does later in. It's all the same thing, but just viewed through a different cultural lens.
Yeah.
It's however everyone perceives these, like, extra-dimensional abilities.
It almost harkens back to Sandman in that regard. How everybody sees, like, Dream as whatever they envision their god of Dream to be. It's like, that's how I like to look at it. And, like, honestly, this whole volume gave me Sandman vibes because of how we're traveling to all these different locations where maybe your main characters pop in for, like, a couple of panels. And I like that.
When this old voodoo woman summons Papa Gady. Papa Gady? I apologize.
There's going to be more of that to come.
She kind of creates this ritual and she plays Jimi Hendrix on the TV, which I thought was kind of similar to King Mob doing the John Lennon.
Yep.
I also thought there was, I'm sure, intentional parallels of the rich white businessmen and those four horrible governors in Castle Schilling in Arcadia, and what they would do when they just have ultimate power and treat the people just like meat, basically.
Yeah. I like in this issue, too, that it kind of also follows, like, this detective couple as well that are, like, kind of our eyes into it. So seeing, like, the African-American detective having a fucking miserable time about it. Yeah. Seeing, like...
He's too old for this job.
He is
he's
too...
He's channeling Big Murdoch energy through this whole thing.
Absolutely. But, like, his redemption at the end, where, like... Justice is getting served and, like, fucking... It's just... All of these guys are getting torn to shreds by voodoo demons and shit like that. And he's just like, well, he's a busy man. We better roll along. Don't bother him. Just excellent stuff.
It's just something he likes to do with the door closed. This is also, I think, notable because I believe this is our first introduction to the concept of magic mirror.
Oh, yeah.
It is described in this as molten imagination, the brick and mortar of the universe, the door to everywhere. I feel like it's almost like a gateway into Barbalith, which is like that higher functioning.
Yeah.
And that is almost a way that the people that have achieved that, like, enlightenment can access Barbalith, which is outside of time and space.
Yeah.
Kind of like a little wormhole into that pure imagination.
Yeah.
Fifth dimension.
Through the looking glass.
Yes, very much. A lot of big Alice in Wonderland vibes there. So he does this by going and confronting this Scorpion King, who had made a deal with this rich white dude, and Papa Gady makes him a better deal. He's like, I can get you more souls. You want souls? I'll fucking get you souls. I'll get you souls by this afternoon. And the Scorpion King's like, yeah, okay. Let's see them souls.
Yeah.
And he's like, and while you're up there, there's one other soul I need you to get for me. He blurps up this gross little mask, and it's King Mob.
Yeah.
So we see, oh boy, King Mob apparently has made a deal with the Scorpion King.
Oh shit.
And it's time to pay the piper.
Yeah.
Scorpion Piper. So it's interesting. I would assume the Scorpion King would be part of the Outer Church, but maybe he's just pure chaos. Maybe he's just has no affiliation, just wants what's best for him. He's working on him.
Yeah.
What he needs.
Yeah.
Also, very, very quick aside here, something that just came up recently in my own life. I just spoke with someone who is big into astrology.
Okay.
And they asked me what my sun, moon, and ascendant signs were. And I had no idea. This isn't something that I follow.
I don't know either.
But I was curious because, like, that's kind of what's going on in here, and it's all, like, looking for meaning and things. And I looked it up, and based on the time and location of my birth, it turns out all of my signs were the same, which is almost unheard of in astrology, and it's all Scorpio.
Get over it.
You're the Scorpion Kid.
I am the Scorpion Kid.
Put the Rock's face on it, right?
And I responded, I was like, is that good? And she said, that's dark as fuck.
Jesus.
I'm like, all right, there we go. We'll
I don't
see
know
how
if I want to subscribe to this stuff. Holy shit.
So we'll see where that leads
I'd be
me.
afraid to do that. It's like 3 donkeys or something.
I think at some point King Mob gets a scorpion tattoo on the base of his spine.
Okay.
Which I think has some sort of symbolism to what he owes this guy. But
Okay.
I'm not gonna lie, I thought, shit, should I get a fucking scorpion tattoo on the base of my spine now? Overall, I thought this was just a fun little departure.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't seem like there was anything like earth-shaking in the grand scheme of the story, but it was just kind of cool to see another member of the Invisible College and how he does the same thing that they're doing, but through his own cultural lens.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. The next issue, Royal Monsters. This one, art by John Ridgway. And in this, we meet a servant working for the outer church, tasked with feeding a horrible thing that they call the Moonchild, and it emerges from a magic mirror. I don't know if it's the same type of magic mirror. I don't think so. Just a mirror, has some magic abilities, and feasts on human carcasses daily. We get a little more detail on the ruling class, such as Sir Miles, who is kind of like one of the main villains of this, and a bunch of old fucks that just want to keep the status quo as it is, just like it was in the good old days.
Yeah.
Jesus.
God.
Apparently the way to do that is to summon a monster that you want to make the next King of England. They pick up homeless folks on the street and hunt them in a dangerous game type of scenario, and then feed them to this beast.
Yeah.
What I enjoyed about this one is, like, I think you can clearly tell, like, Grant being like a Scotsman, being attached to the monarchy of the UK entirely kind of thing, was just like, look, all they want to do is put some inbred fuck in power. And, like, that's exactly what this is. And that's all that it reminded me of. And you could tell that's what he was channeling. And I love that they picked this fucking grotesque, twisted monster to come out, Ephialtes from 300 style. Like, oh my god.
It almost looked like if you were to take off its cloak, it looked like those things from District 9. Just like...
Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah.
Just like...
Fucking Brun.
We learned that servant, who I think his name is Sutton, is actually a Deep Cover Invisibles member who went there with the intention of killing the Moonchild, and somehow along the way, like, developed like kind of a companionship with it or an understanding, and just felt like, I can't kill this thing. Like, I think it likes me.
Yeah,
and, like,
he says that a lot.
I really think it likes me.
I love that he tells his daughter this too.
Tells everyone.
Yeah, he
this.
tells everyone, and they're just like, no, I don't think it does. Like, trust me, it likes.
I think it does, though.
Yeah.
It looked at me for like a second.
Yeah.
And then it wolfed down some gizzard.
It was beautiful.
Can't stop thinking
Barfed
about
up all over it and then sucked it back up. God,
A
what
real
a magnificent creature.
Yeah.
Real Brundle fly.
Yeah.
So yeah, this guy is kind of stuck in the middle, where he doesn't fit either side. He isn't against the Invisibles, but he's not for the outer church cause either.
Yeah.
He just is like, he can't pick a side.
He's for this freak he met in the mirror.
Yeah, yes. And we learn what happens to people that are kind of on that divided line. They eventually kind of like make enemies of both sides, and then they're fed to the moon beast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like, so I know we're making kind of shit out of this guy, but I felt like kind of sympathy for him, being that he is an agent from the invisible side, and comes in and he's like indoctrinated into like deep cover into this outer church side, and then he meets this creature that he almost kind of feels sorry for, because it's like, it didn't want any of this, but it just happens, and he's always like, okay, so he goes there to try to initially kill it, and then he's like, I don't know, like, let's just play this out.
Yeah.
Let's just see if
then,
I can turn him or something, whatever he's thinking.
And he just falls into this routine
Yeah,
that I think
doing
is...
it for years and years.
Yeah.
He said, I've done this every day for 6 years, like, oh, fuck.
Oh, you really like watching this guy throw up over there.
Also, what does the homeless population look like around here? I feel like it would be pretty low at this point.
Yeah.
One of the twists upon twists of the short issue is one of the homeless people that are rounded up and ready to be fed to the creature turns out to be his estranged daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And he finally, like, shakes himself out of this stasis to try to save her. And we find out she is actually a deep cover outer church member, and they've been playing him the whole time. They, like, found his journal, which I don't know why he's writing a physical journal about this, but they find that, and they realize, like, oh yeah, we gotta get this guy out of here, but we're really gonna, like, fuck him over first.
Yeah.
And they're like, give us all the information on King Mob or we'll kill your daughter. And then he's like, I won't do it. Or does he do it?
Yeah, he does.
He does.
Or I don't think he does. I think he is, like, willing to do it because he's like, no, don't kill my daughter. And then they, like, pretty much got him and, like, well, you're a fucking coward. We already know everything we need to know.
Yeah,
anyway.
and then they kill his daughter.
Yeah.
Yes. So this guy just gets fucked over entirely. And keen-eyed readers will see that daughter was actually a homeless woman that approached Dane in the early issues when he was on the run.
Liberty Spikes?
That's her, yep. That's her name. But it was just kind of a little interesting connectivity.
Yeah.
And overall, I thought a really good issue.
Yeah.
So removed from the main characters.
Yeah.
And you just see it, you see a lot of these from, like, the average person. And, you know, we've all been there.
Yeah.
Feeding the Moonchild.
Yeah.
And the like, these elite guys, these outer church motherfuckers, you stick with them for, like, a good chunk of this, too.
Mm-hmm.
God damn, are they just evil.
Oh,
Yeah.
they're the worst.
Yeah.
I love that, like, the introduction to them is in their, like, their den, all drinking their brandy, playing with ancient flintlock pistols, and it accidentally goes off and kills the butler, and they're like, ah, shit, look at the carpet. You know?
Yeah. I do like that they brought that dope along that just keeps accidentally shooting people throughout this whole thing.
Why are you playing with those guns? They're all loaded.
Yeah. And it's like he's even described as like, oh, this is just like my sister's boyfriend's brother or some shit. Like he's some strange idiot who just wants to feel
I
cool.
promised I'd give him a job.
Yeah.
He's essentially the Moonchild.
Yeah, exactly.
Next in line to King of England. I love the art style in this too. I thought it was very creepy.
I agree.
Like, we keep kind of referencing Sandman, and this was written in the same era from the same publisher, but it has strong Sandman vibes. This arc, or this collection, I feel like more than any other one.
Mm-hmm.
So then that brings us to issue 12, Best Man Fall. Art by Steve Parkhouse. And this is seen by many Invisibles fans as the best issue of the entire series.
Okay. I did enjoy this.
I like this one a lot.
Yeah. And this focuses on a seemingly random man named Bobby, whose entire life is glimpsed over the course of 24 pages, drawing connections between his youth, his adult life, his failures and successes, and how all this led him to a security job at Harmony House, where he is unceremoniously gunned down by King Mob in the first issue of the series.
Yeah.
Did you get the feeling that this is where it was going at the beginning, or
No,
was that
no.
a big fucking shock when you
Huge
see
shock.
that?
Yeah.
But that is a testament to how this specific issue is told as the story is laid out. Because it is all over the place, but it's so expertly crafted in what time they're choosing to do things. So, like, you might read something and be like, why are they including just this one panel? Then for it to flip again and you kind of see it, like, either go back in time to make that make more sense, or go in the future to make more threads go through. Like, the way this story is constructed is awesome.
Yep.
I think it's very much kind of that, like, magician's viewpoint where, like, you can make meaning out of seemingly inconsequential events. And when you, like, see someone's entire life as a whole removed from it, you can see, like, all of these connections. And, like, fuck, everything led them to this.
Yeah.
And it's, like, heartbreaking. Like, because this guy, Bobby, is not a good guy, but he's not evil.
No.
He's just a working class dude that had kind of a shit hand and tried to make the most of it, and he had his faults and failures, but, like, he never tried to do bad.
Right.
Yeah.
And he is just wiped off the board like nothing by the heroes or the main characters of this.
Yeah.
And
he was the one gun...
I don't think he was the one that got shot in the balls.
No, but he was the one right next to the guy who got his balls shot off.
Yeah.
And the one in the last panel, he's like, "Ah, my ball!" Like, I remember that guy.
Yeah.
So I guess all things considered, he could have had it worse.
Yeah.
This is the most empathetic human issue in the entire run, showing the common man for all they are, neither a hero or a villain, just someone trying to get by. It shows the collateral damage done by the two warring sides, particularly to those who have no real stake in the conflict whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And then moving through time at will, we see young Bobby playing war with his friends and being asked what he wants to be killed by, knife, grenade, or rifle. That's how it opens. When you were a kid, did you always want to die when you were playing, like, games?
I don't think so.
I thought, like, when I was little, like, we were playing, like, Aliens or Predator or something,
Sure.
me and my cousins, Paul, Coos,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
We always wanted to be, like, the one that died, like, heroically. Maybe it was the Stockton thing.
Yeah.
But I, like, felt a real connection to that. I'm like, yeah, why did kids always want to die? And this issue shows the ultimate horror of violence, like, where they're looking at it as a game. This whole, like, most of the time, violence in comics is a game.
Yeah.
This whole series says everything is a game, but it's not for these people,
Right.
you know? Yeah. In the caption, the very first words in it is, try to remember, it's only a game. Mm-hmm. And then from there, we flash between Bobby as a grown man, injured in military combat and forced to get a seemingly mundane job working security for a mysterious boys' home. There's whispers that it's shady, but he's trying to get by, making his crumbling marriage work and trying to provide for his sick daughter. And we also see him go from, like, a countercultural punk type of guy to the establishment soldier. Mm-hmm. So, like, he's kind of been all over the place. He's figuring it all out. Mm-hmm. And he just kind of, like, winds up in this situation. Doesn't seem like it's what he wants or anything. It's just where he ended up.
Yeah.
We get heartbreaking glimpses at his childhood where he's comforting his teddy bear when his parents fight in the next room. And then we smash cut to him tossing it in the garbage as he fights with his brother years later and walks out of his life. And then his brother tells him he always hated him on his deathbed. He sees his parents fighting, and that mirrors his own abusive relationship with his wife. We see both the worst moments montaged with his most loving moments with his wife. Mm-hmm. And it just all feels, like, so powerful to see someone's entire existence from afar, like, so removed from it.
Yeah.
And just seeing, like, how all these connections play out to bring them where they eventually end up.
Yep.
Which, unfortunately, is at the barrel of King Mob's gun.
Yeah. And that fucking stupid mask.
Yes! Oh. Yes. That was actually the next thing I had here, too. Yeah. To see that poor kid scared of a gas mask in his shed as a child, eventually gunned down by King Mob wearing a similar shamanic guise. It's poetic in a way that Shelley and Byron couldn't even prophesize. And, like, I felt like it just seems so unfair.
Very much so, yeah.
And I guess that's life.
Yeah.
Especially, like, when you want to make connections to things, and you're just like, oh, man.
Right.
Could something have happened differently? You know? Or is this exactly how it had to happen?
Even with his life's best intentions, all the things that happened because of A to B to whatever C had led him down to here. Be like, well, I have to do this to provide for whoever.
Yeah.
So, like, even if he was anti-establishment at one point, he had to take that route in order to provide.
Yeah.
And so that makes way more sense to me. Like, I've done a lot of shit I've never wanted to do for years to make things work.
You can find it on Craigslist.
Yeah.
You still got that listing?
Yeah.
Or are you doing better now?
I'm doing way better.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, you had that third kid.
Yeah.
You might want to think about the future. So I talked a lot about that. Did you guys have anything? I want to
Not
give the...
anything.
Yeah,
I
like
have
that
already
kind
said.
of covers everything. It just is like, yeah, it's just like a that's life story, and like it's just unfortunate that you can get caught up on, regardless of who's a good or bad guy. It doesn't matter if you're not involved at all, kind of a thing. Like you're just fodder, and that just sucks. That's it.
And it shows like how little the Invisibles care. I think.
Yeah.
About that collateral damage. Everyone is the enemy. Everyone that's not them is the enemy. Us versus them.
And this issue actually put that in perspective more. It's like, oh yeah, I guess if this is a war, there's going to be casualties on both sides of people who I guess don't really deserve it.
Yeah.
And it like, I was like, are the Invisibles really good? I mean, the title of the book is them, so we're kind of like rooting for them, I guess. But not really right here.
Yeah.
That guy's nuts right off.
Yeah.
Right next to this Bobby fella.
Yeah. Poor Bobby fella. I felt like it's funny because this seemed very similar to Dr. Manhattan's Requiem on Mars, where it just goes between past and future, makes all these connections. And as much as Morrison has said, like, they don't really care for Watchmen, I'm like, yeah, this was pretty fucking Watchmen.
Yeah. Or that scene in Austin Powers where the guy gets mowed over by the steamroller and then it cuts to his family being told he got mowed over by a steamroller.
Nasty way to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I asked Cody Walker, guest instructor and published author, to shed some more insight on this, and this is what he had to say.
Hello, this is Cody Walker. There's a lot of heavy things that happen in The Invisibles, but in Volume 2, I feel like there is some stuff that sticks with you, scenes that stay with you. I recommend, if you're going to dive in and you really are going to connect with all of it, to cleanse the space first. Light some candles, view the space as being protected on all sides by a shield that is being watched over by angels or superheroes or gods, whatever framework you want to work with. Because, as I said, there's some issues in here that I think are pretty heavy. The two that really stay with me more than anything is Royal Monsters and Best Man Fall, especially Best Man Fall. But I have had dreams of Royal Monsters as well that are pretty terrifying. That stayed with me. We look at the other side of things. We look at what it's like to be the foot soldier in the army of the villain. That issue makes us empathize with the people who do all of the grunt work, the things that the higher ups won't do. And we recognize they don't do things for evil intentions. They often do it for economic, monetary intentions, and not out of greed, but out of just sheer survival. And there's something heartbreaking in the idea that the war between chaos and order is fought there in the trenches, and the lives that are being lost are ours. You know, the people that are just taking a job to make ends meet. If you think about, I don't know, Chick-fil-A, I guess, McDonald's, is that the workers are the ones who are ground up into dealing with minimum wage and barely being able to afford rent and food on their own plate in order to get cussed at by people that, you know, think that they're owed more than they're owed. And while that is very different than a security officer named Bobby, who is a very complex individual who has lived through a cycle of abuse and is a former veteran who has to take this job to take care of his disabled kid, it is the same thing in a way. Comics are a heightened sense of reality, and this is no different than that. That is an issue that really sticks with you. Royal Monsters is another one. That same sort of like, here's the foot soldier in the army, you know, serving. Of course, this person is also an invisible as well, but there's that heartbreaking bit where his daughter had betrayed him, and for what? They still kill her, and he is fed to the moon child. I don't really stay up with the royals or anything, but every time they mention the royals, I always think of the moon child. So both of those are such heavy books that as I was going back and revisiting them on a week where I'm kind of having a good week, it is a full moon today, a huge full moon as I drove into school. I don't know, I felt like I should have cleansed the space before I tried to give them a read because they just really made my brain not great. So, all right.
Hello, darkness.
One last note about this, and this is like a really odd non sequitur type of moment where Bobby is like 1 year old and he gets his teddy bear, and his mom asks, what should he call it? And you see a disembodied voice say, Edith says to call him Booty. Mm-hmm. So Bobby didn't say it, obviously, because he's only one, and they think they hear it, but they're not sure, and then they just ignore it and move on. And I don't remember how this pays off, but I know this comes back.
Okay.
So stick it in your mind.
Okay.
Push aside some like long division or something to make room for Booty.
Easy.
And yeah, I have plenty of room there. But that is something that will eventually have some sort of resolution or payoff. Okay.
Booty.
So with that, we get to this collection's first long-form story since Arcadia. And that is a 3-issue arc called She-Man, which is the origin of Lord Fanny. Mm-hmm. Jill Thompson returns for the art on this 3-issue arc and gives us probably the most characterization that any of the Invisibles members have had up until then.
Okay.
We still don't love them, but you get more to them than just like the cause.
To be fair, we don't love King Mob. Everyone else seems okay so far.
This arc deals with transformation, I feel like, is one of the central themes of the entire series, but this one in particular.
Very much so.
I want to interject here.
Yes.
I
disagree.
feel
Everyone is what they are.
I feel like I caught on far too late that this was about Fanny. Like, the whole growing up thing.
Really?
For whatever reason, I thought it was going to be like a side-by-side kind of like similarities, like showing between the both. Mm-hmm. And then I caught on probably about almost done with the first part of this issue. I'm like, oh no, it's just her.
At the end, where Hildy says, well, I'm Fanny now.
yeah, fuck. I feel like a complete idiot. Like, I don't know if I was just spacing off or whatever, but
well,
I found it out.
That's kind of an interesting way to read it, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if there's any right or wrong answer, but to not know that it's the same person and then have it, like, coalesce at the end is kind of cool.
Right. I guess...
Yeah, like
sure.
Yeah, you're doing it!
I guess I would have
Good for
never
you.
expected, like, Fanny to have, like, a backstory like this. I thought it was far too separated.
It's extreme from what we've known about her so far. So, like, you would have never guessed it was this
fucking
involved
rough.
and in-depth and
Yeah.
rough. Yeah.
And even, I kind of also forgot that the young version was living in, like, a current time, because if you take out, like, the first few pages where they lead up to that, and it's just, like, temples and people with face paint and bones to their nose and shit, you're like, oh, I'm back in, like, fucking the Mesozoic era or whatever. Like, I'm way... So that also separated it out for me.
Yeah.
Quick disclaimer on this. There are a lot of Aztec gods with very hard to pronounce names that these three Midwestern boys aren't really going to try to attempt. There's one in particular...
even remember.
Yeah. There's one in particular that we're probably going to get into. The main one. He's got it queued up on his phone to just pronounce it for us.
Quetzalcoatl?
It's even Quetzalcoatl. You've said
It's not a koala.
Yeah.
It doesn't have chlamydia.
So
I said an L.
Nope.
One more time.
McClontacootly.
McClontacootly.
Yep. That's the one.
That's the god of death.
Yeah, so that's
really the only one we need to
the only one we
address
need.
in any.
They say a lot of them, and I looked up a video on how to pronounce all of them just to forget them this morning, and they're hard.
It also crashed your computer.
Yeah.
Well, I was reading them, and I was like, not gonna remember that.
Skip that one.
I was like, that one starts with a T. That one's
All you need to know is, like, is this different from that one?
Yeah.
And the amount of time I had to put to differentiate that maybe it was a different one is unheard of.
It's just a series of T's and L's thrown in a word.
Maybe some Q's and X's.
Z.
Yeah. Almost like no vowels.
Yes.
Like,
We are not criticizing. We are acknowledging our own ignorance on this.
Yeah.
Transformation. Fanny. Starts with the metamorphosis of a caterpillar to a butterfly, which eventually becomes Fanny's spirit animal, I guess you would call it. Totem. It also can represent the larval stage of humanity before transitioning into a higher form of existence. You could make some connections there to that scarab that we saw. And also that whole humanity is in the dirt, and they gotta grow through that to get to the...
I remember talking about dirt.
Remember the dirt?
Yeah.
How could you forget the dirt?
So we get a narration about the creation of the universe through the lens of Aztec gods, which we already addressed. Not our strong suit. And this also shows how a person's beliefs and perceptions of the world can change their entire identity. We flash back to young Hildy, a Brazilian boy, born into a family of powerful female sorcerers. They can only pass their abilities to another woman in the bloodline.
Yeah.
So the grandmother just goes and makes a family decision for everybody that young Hildy is going to go through an initiation ritual where she encounters Barbalith to become her true self. And also he's going to be a woman now.
Yeah.
So... does this seem unfair to Hildy?
Oh boy, we're gonna get into this.
I'm not judging one way or another. I'm just saying, like, it seemed like the choice of her eventual self was completely taken out of her hands.
I also thought the same thing.
I agree.
Unless it was just always meant to be in, like, the greater scheme of magic and understanding.
So...
Because that grandmother was really dead set on her being a woman.
And the fact that, like, they knew she was a boy at birth. I gotta throw in the little comedy bit here first where they get on the dad who's just sitting on, like, his recliner drinking a beer. He's like, you couldn't have had a girl, you idiot! And, like, his speech bubbles literally just fucking... Damn.
Could you imagine him living in that house full of women?
Magic women.
Magic women.
Yeah.
What was that?
I'm gonna go to the garage.
Bang a wrench around a steel pipe.
But Hildy was, like, always raised... I'm sorry. I'm gonna
Is
get
it like a nature versus nurture
It's
type
very
thing?
much
It
is,
is
yeah.
that, yeah.
It's all she knew,
Yeah.
but you're like, you know, there could have been a different path, but what was
The choice,
right
I would
path?
say, was not there, though.
Right, she didn't have that red pill, blue pill choice.
It's true.
But she did encounter Barbalith through a spiritual ritual, which should be like the greatest truth, I suppose. And if that happened, I think you would just assume this is how it's supposed to play out.
Right.
And even so, even if that wasn't there, regardless of what her life becomes, it seems like she fell into... You could assume, like, once she, like, left the nest, she would have chosen this kind of life. And
Yeah.
not
Fully
necessarily the
embraced
things
it.
that happened
Right.
to her.
Yeah.
But, like,
Yeah.
even from a young age, she feels like an attraction towards other boys.
Yes.
Whereas I don't feel like that can be so much forced upon you.
Yeah, true. So, is Fanny a fiction suit for Hildy?
Ooh.
And can a fiction suit become your true identity?
See, I would say Fanny's just the true identity. But like, also, the fiction suit thing's really hard to kind of wrap your mind around.
We're
especially-
still not 100% sure
Yeah.
on what qualifies, and I do have another person speaking about the concept of fiction suits at the end of this episode, so stay tuned if that's your bag, baby.
I feel like it's more of that's a transformation, and what we see is like the true person. And maybe when she's dressed down, that's more of like a fiction suit. Because you see
Maybe.
a little bit, like a few pages at all, like before she gets dolled back up again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that is.
But when
But that's
when
almost
she
like-
does like doll herself up, it's almost in like a magic ritual where it seems similar to like King Mob embracing Lenin. You know, it's like kind of becoming this true person. I don't know. I guess it's not really an important question, but
But I want to elaborate on it more.
Suit,
Yeah.
be,
So like, let's take it to the lens of like like Batman, for example. What is like the true person there? Is it Batman? Is it Bruce Wayne?
Oh.
Or is it Batman sitting in the cave with his cowl off, like with Alfred alone?
Yeah.
Like, just at his relaxed state, is that the true person?
Yeah.
Like, he's not putting on any face at all.
Right?
Like, is that similar to what's going on here?
Yeah, that seems about right. Morrison goes on to describe identity in an interview with Crime Reads when they were talking about their most recent full novel, Luda, which deals with like an aging drag queen who's also a magic practitioner. Excellent book, right in line with everything else they're talking about. Morrison says, identity appears to be conditional and refuses to be contained by any label. How does the identity of a person as a 2-year-old child square with that same person's alleged identity as a 40-year-old?
Holy shit.
Those 2-year-old children up there are going nuts.
Wait till they're 40. Then I can finally beat them up.
You 80-year-old man. Fuck. I'll be 70.
Or as a dying 90-year-old in a failing physical frame. Our bodies and minds and how we feel about ourselves and who we are within a larger, constantly shifting and rearranging system are subject to such radical transformations over decades. The idea of a single label adequate to that process seems absurd.
Yeah.
I
100% agree with that.
And I don't think people go through, like, full-on physical transformations as commonly as, Fanny does here, but it absolutely happens. And just like the mental change and transformation as people grow over time, 100%.
Yeah. I think about the idea of labeling, and I know why humans do it, to, like, help sort things out and put things in categories, but categories are dangerous, and, like...
Yeah.
Like, you almost don't want a lot of that stuff to just be the case, but, like, we understand why it's there, or else we wouldn't have all of this language, so it's a hard thing to balance, and that, like, categorizing is where we get people like fucking Hitler and terrible people like that. So, like, there's always that fine balance of, holy shit, maybe we why do we need all, like, labels and things of all that nature? But it's just like, that's human nature, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So.
Trying to make order out of chaos.
Yeah.
Outer church.
Fuck.
But, like, it's something that we all subscribe to because it helps you get through the day.
Not everything can be a junk drawer.
Right.
Yeah.
But when you pull it out, it's still compartmentalized in a drawer anyway. So it's
Oh my god. That might be.
We're going to call it Troy's drawer.
That was some pretty higher level metaphor there.
Thanks,
I like
man.
that.
I'm very proud of you. You know what? You're not in the front of the class, but you're not as far behind Neil as you were last episode. Life experiences change who you become. Like, simple as that. Or at least they should. And if they don't, then, like, what the fuck are you doing? Then, like, you're a corpse. Because if you're not growing and learning, then what is the point?
Yeah, just a fucking lump.
Yeah.
Just getting lumped, getting hunted by Sir Miles.
Right. To be fed to another lump. Another lumpy nerd kid. Yeah, like, I mean, what happens when you stop growing? Like, that's death, essentially. So, Morrison recently identified as non-binary, and I'd be interested to hear about, like, their past adventures, because it seems like both Luda and this arc featuring Fanny pulls, like, a lot of seemingly kind of real-life material, and I don't think they've ever talked much about that. I would be intrigued at their own experiences on the drag scene.
All I know is that they did. But that's it.
I know Morrison, like, in a few documentaries has, like, briefly mentioned it in passing.
Yeah.
And, like, that's it.
I know. You just wonder, like, how far did you go on that?
Because in this book, it seems like you may have experienced quite a bit.
Yeah. I think I just love the idea of being able to work out your own life experiences by recounting them through, like, a fictional work.
Sure.
To try to, like, make sense out of it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's therapeutic. Like, you're making connections. You're kind of observing it from afar.
Yeah.
And trying to make meaning out of what you encounter.
Well, even if you're putting it on paper like that, you have to have an antagonist or something antagonistic against you, so you're trying to see it from the other side as well, so you kind of get a more rounded view of, I guess, your own world.
Yeah, I feel like it would be very healthy to kind of like see yourself as a character that has flaws, rather than from your own perception of yourself.
Yeah.
Like, that's one of the big things about, like, achieving enlightenment and getting to the super context in this is removing your own ego, your own perception of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would be a very good way of doing it. If anybody was looking for, like, exercises or, like, little homework, like, write a story and, you know, and see where that takes you and pull some real life experiences from that and just see how kind of, like, what deeper knowledge you gain about yourself in doing that.
It's with that train of thought going forward, it's like, then how does King Mob get to do what he does? He seems very into himself.
I think it's interesting because I feel like almost all of the characters do represent different facets of Morrison. So like King Mob is almost like that unchained id. Just like, be cool, do whatever the fuck you want. And that does come to get him later. Whereas, like, Dane is, like, that angsty teen. Fanny is, like, the, you know, very self-assured, like, drag queen. And then Boy and Robin, not so much.
Yeah.
But
They're
even,
there.
like, yes,
Yeah.
they're there, too. But even, like, Sir Miles, as it goes on, becomes more humanized, and you almost start to see things from his point of view, too.
Oh, shit.
Which is really interesting. It's just kind of like this, just all-encompassing, you know, like, we're all not that different.
Well, yeah, we're all trying to balance the chaos and the...
We're all just trying not to get shot in the balls.
Yeah.
Doing what we can.
Yeah. Amen to that. I'm sure to that.
So, after that very long aside, getting back to the story.
Oh, yeah, I
But
forgot we were talking about it.
But I felt like that was a good conversation there.
Mm.
All of Fanny's past is being viewed through the living magic mirror that she regurgitates in the bathroom of Drag Club here. Through it, she's able to perceive all time at once, living in all moments simultaneously. She sees her encounter as a child with the Aztec death gods. Hang tight. Obviously.
I feel like it said it different somehow.
I'm glad I'm not the only one. And this is kind of the beginning of her initiation as a child. Then we just roll into her degrading near-death experience as a prostitute, where she kind of learned to take the pain and filth of life and turn it into gold. Another metaphor for that butterfly or the scarab or the soil that humanity grows in. Mm-hmm. And finally, the present time, where she encounters Brody, a undercover agent from the outer church who has seduced her and ends up holding her at gunpoint for information on King Mob. All of these events are happening at once.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is such a hard thing for me to just wrap my head around. Every time someone does this in a comic, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
It's
So,
almost like, okay.
what I liked, yeah, exactly. This is like some Destiny level bullshit
It is
going
like
on.
rewriting how you perceive everything
Yeah.
to even be able to follow this.
What I liked about this in regards to that is that they're intermittent throughout all of these three issues, that whenever Fanny is in a different part, like, she's always confused and asks that question, like, when we're in her shoes.
Was it?
What? Yeah, exactly.
Who was it?
It's like she's just as confused as like the readers could be. Like, I'm seeing
Yeah.
I think like she kind of like grounds it back to like, no, remember this is all happening all at once. Just so like you're aware, this is not now. This is not the future. This is not the past. It's all of it.
I also like that it made her vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because prior to this, she was like the fucking powder keg of the Invisibles, where she just vanquished Orlando,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
summoning that death god.
Yeah.
And here it's like, oh yeah, like, she's human, you know, just
Yeah.
like everyone else.
Yeah.
And she's like really fucked up on this magic mirror stuff, I guess.
Oddly enough, this wasn't the most confusing part of the book for me. I actually can grasp this for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, it's happening at once?
Got it.
Let's go. Let's get on. Let's go.
My life's a blur anyway. Fuck it.
It's all happening at once. So we're told by the butterfly,
As you are.
common phrase, her spirit animal, that time is not a river, it's more like a bubble, but is to a bubble what a bubble is to a circle drawn on the ground. That's where it's like, okay, I gotta think like 3 tiers here. And time is folding towards its own center where it will collapse and cease to exist. And Fanny and Mob talk about this in that diner where they talk about, like, do you feel like time's speeding up? You know?
Yeah.
Which I guess is kind of a real kind of perception that a lot of people has, especially in the age of technology and everything, where you just don't have fucking time anymore.
Right.
Well, I think that's just also the thing of getting older.
Yeah.
It's like you're always, like, I don't know, everything's slow if you're only a week old and you don't know, like, what is, but it's like, you know, you're in your 30s, you understand that, and it's only going to seem to get faster as it would because you've just experienced more of that, you know.
So would you say reality is how you perceive the world?
Yeah, I guess.
We also see this bubble circle metaphor illustrated when Hildy steps outside of time and perceives the entire life on Earth, basically, her entire life, as a flat, 2-dimensional set piece. I feel like that is kind of a Morrison trick up his sleeve that they do a lot, where it's just like, imagine our life as a comic book. That is how, like, beings outside of time and space would perceive 3-dimensional life. So it's just like different levels with more dimensions.
Yeah.
Hildy encounters the god of death, and he tells her that she owes him for killing Orlando, something that she summoned him to do in the previous arc, and hence all times are the same time. She's got to pay up right now, even though her form at that moment is a kid, which it hasn't happened to yet. And he tells her that she will die and gives a very horrifying speech. So, I'm going to talk about death for a minute. Death is here now. This is the moment of your death. All of your time living was wasted, pretending this would never happen. It is here. It has arrived. You never truly lived, and now you must die. This is the extinction of all that you are. And that is, like, that is a terrifying thought to me.
Yeah. Especially if it's a skeleton.
to be-
Yeah,
all right,
with a dunce cap.
I was gonna like, let's be fair, a polka dot skeleton with a big dunce hat on telling me something.
You look a little ridiculous.
Yeah, you look silly, man. And he's got real eyes for some reason.
We said it looked like the cover to Evil Dead 2.
Yeah.
As a kid, the concept of death was something that, like, kept you up at night occasionally, if you permitted yourself to actually try to comprehend that. And still, like, as an adult, I think that is one of the... It's the most terrifying thing, because it's the only thing in life that is 100% you will die.
Yeah.
You know?
Taxes.
And taxes.
Thanks, Franklin.
Oh, we need to do another Boston Tea Party.
Oh,
Tell you what.
Oh, God.
But the whole concept that everything you are is gone, everything like you've spent so much time creating and becoming, fucking gone in like a blink, as if you were never there, is like, that is like horrifying to me. To the point where, like, I don't allow myself to think about it very much, because I think it's just like, it's so fucking terrifying.
You, out of anyone I know, shouldn't.
Yes. I know.
I've probably said this before, but you're a bit of a worrier.
I'm a bit of a worrier. I blame my parents.
And the best thing is alcohol.
Yes.
Alcohol is God's apology to making us self-aware.
Yes.
So there we go.
I found edibles the absolute reverse. You somehow become more worried about these things. But just, I guess, like, there's a comfort maybe in the fact that everyone who has come before you has died. So, like, you're in good company. You're in bad company too, but, like, you're not the first. There's going to be everyone since then, and it's all something that everyone does.
We'll see.
We'll see. Old Hob over here. But I also think, like, the other aspect of that seems, like, so defeating to me is that we see ourselves as an individual. Like, everyone in their own mind is like, I am me, and I'm different from everyone else, but yet we all reach that same fate. Mm-hmm. There's nothing you can do about it, and in the end, you're just like everyone else.
Some get shot in the balls, though.
Some get shot in the balls, some get shot in the head. Yeah. And Fanny responds to that threat by saying, I don't want to feel this, I don't want to go. Which just like, yeah, simple as that. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. That is exactly how I feel everyone will probably feel in that moment of passing. Mm-hmm. I'm like, fuck. Mm-hmm. It's a fucking comic, but like, that hurts. I relate to that.
So I don't want to get on this because it's depressing and shit. But
no,
like,
let's get into it.
I'm going to get into it real quick.
Real hard.
Weirdly, I think this came from Kevin Smith. He was talking about it, and it was revolving around when his mom was having a hard time with something. I think she was like dead on the operating table. Kevin asked her, like, what was that feeling? Like, it had to have been scary. And she had the exact opposite reaction of like, no, you no longer have, like, all I felt was relief. I don't have to take the dog out. I don't have to do the fucking dishes. I don't have to do anything. And it was like this massive burden lifted off your chest. And then came back, but like, obviously she's not, obviously she's not sore about it, but like, Kevin was expounding on it too, and I thought that was like,
really?
Yeah, exactly! Yeah, surprise. But like, obviously he's had like traumatic experiences too. Mm-hmm. So like, and I know he's talked about it on that more worry side of end, where he's like, oh, now I want to get in shape, but like, I think that just gives you the peace of mind, like, fuck, maybe it's not bad. It's like, just fuck it. Like, you just power forward, you do what you're gonna do, and it's gonna happen, like, oh well. You're gonna feel just as good as everyone else did, like, oh.
Except that guy got shot in the balls.
No, he got shot in the balls.
The fact that, like, it is coming for everyone, and no matter what we do as a society, making medical advancements, trying to look younger, feel younger, like, it is inescapable. And then, like, you read something like Neil Gaiman's issue on death, or, like, Day Tripper, and this fiction makes you feel more comfort in the prospect of death. And that, I think, speaks to the power of fiction that we talked about, where, like, that can rewrite your entire reality for the better. Mm-hmm. Because you could absolutely be horrified of it and spend every waking minute terrified, or you can just be like, it's gonna happen, and there's nothing you can do, so, like, I'm gonna believe something that's more comforting. Yeah. And that is, I think, what religion is, and I'm, like, too much of a skeptic to fully go into that, where I have to be a little bit more niche, I guess, on what I want to believe, but something like
polka dot skeleton,
or a polka dot skeleton, or an Invisibles, or a Sandman, I'm like, yeah, I mean, that gives me comfort in that.
Yeah.
Man.
Everybody's got a book of their life, where the back cover is your death.
Yeah.
So fill it with as many words and pages as you can.
Fuck yeah, man.
Make it a good story.
Fuck yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Fanny's able to cheat death by telling a very lewd joke. That is exactly where I left off in my notes. So, she confronts the god of death, and she is right there, about to die, and she's like, I'm going to tell you a joke. What's pink, wrinkled, and stiff, and makes women squeal? Cot death babies.
That.
Roll snare.
Oh, I guess it would be a joke that only like that skeleton.
She knew her audience. She read the room, and the skeleton has a little chortle.
I can only imagine the skeleton didn't laugh. It was just like.
Oh,
fuck. Is that good? I don't fucking know.
It rattled his bones.
It rattled his bones. So,
I just had the image of him just fucking loving that joke, and he's just like, I watch for it on his ribs. He's just the human
God.
instrument. And he's just fucking living for it.
oh, I'm really coming around on the skeleton.
Me too.
I'm
Now
going to
you
start
say it.
subscribing to the Aztec theology here. But he lets her go and imparts some wisdom to her, saying, gods are only masks. And then says, who wears us?
Oh.
I don't know. But I think it's a question very much in line with everything else in this book. Everything that we perceive as outside forces, who is actually controlling those? Are they all just masks of one higher power? Barbalith? I don't know. I don't know. So as she goes, she learns a secret common language of the shamans, where she cuts her tongue on like a thorn. And we're told that this is language whose words do not describe things, but are things. Which made me think of the invisible speech that maybe John the Baptist's severed head talked about. And then we rocket to present time, all happening at once, mind you, where she offers Brody in her place to the god of death and is able to gain the upper hand, killing him amidst a brutal struggle that took place between them and King Mob, who came into the fight.
Finally intervened.
Yes, yes. There's a pretty good, like, drawn-out fight between the two of them. Brody is, like, enthusiastic that he gets to fight King Mob.
Yeah.
And they go a couple rounds, but then Fanny's finally able to, like, just jab him in the nuts with a piece of glass from the mirror.
Yeah.
And that's what does him in. Fucking bleeds out through his balls. A lot of ball
Nasty
death.
way to go.
Yeah. A lot of testicular trauma in the Invisibles.
Another thing about King Mob. So, like, he shows up to here, and you're like, oh, shit, Brody, you're gonna get it. And then Brody,
Not
mops
really.
the floor with him.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like,
Mobs the
God
floor with it.
damn it, Mob. Can you do something that I like here?
Yeah.
Either come to the rescue and be completely awesome, or not be such a... I don't know. Come on. Do something here.
He could have
He
shown
needs
up.
to do a lot to win me over in this book.
He could have shown up in his goofy ass mask.
That's true.
It could have been worse.
I feel like I don't know if he really ever wears it again.
Just like Sandman.
Yeah,
Such
it's
as that
very
shit.
Sandman.
This thing sucks.
And we didn't talk about the mask, but I just saw it as like a shamanic magic ritual type of thing.
To me, it looked like a diver mask with like a big wig on it.
Yep.
Like, that is stupid looking.
Yeah. Yeah.
This whole thing wraps up where we get like one last look at the past, if there is such a thing, where the butterfly gives one last parting sentiment that echoes kind of a Dr. Manhattan type of thing, where it says, "Nothing begins, nor does it end. Things are ever present." Hildy says, "Then is my initiation over, or has it just begun?" And the butterfly responds with, "How should I know? I'm only a butterfly after all. I must attend to my own business." To which I ask, what butterfly business is more pressing at the moment?
Collecting pollen. Yeah.
I've got my own business.
I got a
to
bunch of
attend to.
stamens to go check out over here. Let me flutter on.
It's got bigger fish to fry. Yeah.
Oh,
But,
the wind is too strong.
Oh, shit.
Damn it.
By the end, we see Hildy transformed into a full woman, Lord Fanny. And then, in the present, old Sir Miles walks in the aftermath of the carnage and says, in the most British way possible, "Gentlemen, I rather think we've bagged King Mob." What?
No, we got one more.
We got one more. I had just a couple other little tiny honorable mentions in this 3-issue arc. I really enjoyed Fanny crushing those bigots in the kink store.
Oh, yeah.
And she is literally Morrison's Emma Frost
Yeah.
character in this.
Very much.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Darling. Like, it is absolutely Emma Frost as Lord Fanny. I enjoyed King Mob telling Edith about his attack on Harmony House and the way he's telling it as if it was drawn by Rob Liefeld.
Okay, so when I first started that issue, I was like, what the fuck is this bullshit? And then I got further and I was like, okay, I like that.
Yeah. So, like, more ammunition to the idea that King Mob is just like an adolescent teenage boy who just thinks this is really fucking cool. Just going in, guns blazing, feet hidden.
Yeah. Muscles, unproportioned.
Yep.
Yeah.
King Mob also, when he's en route to Fanny, he picks up a crazy hitchhiker who spouts a bunch of conspiracy theory mumbo jumbo that seems like maybe this is something. But I feel like it's also so bizarre, I don't know if it is. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like that street preacher from the previous arc, where it's like, okay, you could probably make some connections here, but also, like, maybe there are just crazy theories in this world, and they aren't all associated with what the main storyline is. Who knows?
I thought he was just going to look over at that guy and be like, I got a bomb in this car. Yeah.
Kind of my thing.
Yeah.
Dane throws Molotovs, I put bombs in cars.
Yeah.
Same effect.
Yeah.
And then the very last thing, when Fanny was at her lowest point as a prostitute, they just went through the fucking ringer there. Do you have anything to add on that?
No. Oh, well, go ahead.
She is recruited to the Invisibles by Jonna Dreams.
Yes.
Who is Mob's mentor that disappeared.
Mm-hmm. You know who Jonna Dreams reminds me of?
David Carradine?
No. Well, yes.
Scott Glenn?
It reminds me of another comic, Planetary.
Yes.
Where they try to revive this guy from the past team, and you're like, who is this guy? And then he ends up being like a big deal at the end where they open up the time machine and they all come in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck, what is his name?
I can't remember now. It's not Elijah
African
Snow.
American guy.
Yeah.
But he looks like Elijah Snow because
Yeah,
he's all in white. He has white hair.
I thought that was who it was at first. And I was like, oh, like, what the fuck is going on here? That's not Elijah Snow, is it?
I can't remember the guy's name, who seemingly is very
I feel like
important
it
at
starts
the
with
end
an
of
A.
Planetary.
But yeah,
Fuck.
he's a good guy.
Love.
Glad they got him back.
Yeah.
Glad we got him back and we can remember all of his things. Especially his name.
Yeah.
I have to pee. Anyone else have to
Yes,
pee? Okay,
also have
let's
to
take a pause. If we can get real here, guys.
All right.
This is the realest I've ever been, Dave. You know it.
But what is real?
God damn it!
So the last issue in this collection, London, drawn by Paul Johnston, returns to Dane for the first time in a while, now living on the streets, haunted by the guilt of killing that officer, and retracing his teachings from Tom O'Bedlam. Suddenly, he recalls his first encounter with Barbalith back in the subway tunnels, where Tom took him and he ingested that blue mold. Which I don't know if we ever get any more info on what this blue mold is. Just some sort of horrible fungus that's just rotting people's brains, making them
Tom
perceive.
making them eat it.
Yeah. We see a previously locked away memory, or a forgotten memory, where Dane is abducted by a very traditional looking group of aliens and subjected to a cranial implant to activate his third eye.
Yeah.
This is very Kathmandu.
It's very
What?
90s.
Yeah.
See, you said the Kathmandu thing. I'm always waiting for that to happen in this book.
It does.
And it's not.
Oh,
this.
that's
It's
not
not-
this?
I think this is like kind of it, but there's a more Catman.
I guess those were like
later.
silver blob alien. I don't know how he described this.
Globules.
Yeah, I don't know. But like, yeah, this is
Globular blobules.
like, yeah, this is like first episode of South Park type aliens where they
I don't
abduct.
care. I love when anybody uses this.
I didn't know where you fall on the aliens.
Yeah.
I love the aliens.
Here's the thing, though. Like, up until this reading, I always thought, like, that is so fucking 90s. Like, it is such, like, a dated perception of aliens. But I don't know why it just clicked on me that, like, that is just the cultural lens that Dane is perceiving these extra-dimensional entities at the time this took place.
Sure.
So, Fanny sees, like, gods and death gods appropriate to Aztec culture. Jim Crow sees voodoo gods. Dane, a kid in the 90s that's grown up in the X-Files era, perceives these beings as little green men.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's actually perfect. Like, I always thought that was, like, an issue where I'm like, but then the fucking aliens are in it. And I'm like, no, that is like, it was almost as if it was written way after that, where it's like, that would be how we perceive aliens at that time, or anything that you can't explain.
It almost bothers me you didn't like this off the bat, when I'm just like, I love Little Gray Man. Yeah, I love it.
Troy, I was all in on the poets.
Yeah, this is true. Troy's just getting randy for these fucking stereotypical looking aliens.
On first glance, I thought it was too on the nose until I realized, like, that is exactly what it's supposed to. That is how this dumb, like, Liverpool kid perceives, like, an extra-dimensional being. It's just, like, the goofy, big-eyed aliens. Yeah. And they give him the probe and everything, and they say, like...
something on, like, a cock.
He got a big old fucking thing on his cock. But, like, yeah, he's
what
there.
What is that doing? Don't move, it'll shoot your balls off.
But they give him an implant, like their traditional alien implant. They say it's this piece of rock that they're going to put in to open his third eye. To which, like, I assume is just his way of perceiving they are making a connection between him and Barbalith.
Okay.
This outside presence, and now he is able to, like, gain access to that enlightened perception. Mm-hmm. And the only way he can, like, perceive this is, like, oh, it's aliens and they're performing, like, a fucking anal probe into my brain.
That was in my anus. Oh, don't put that in my brain, that was in my anus. Let's talk about, like, what this allows him to do. This is where I was kind of confused. Can he just bend reality as people see it?
He doesn't use it much, but he is, I mean, like, we haven't done any Matrix references yet, so we might as well just rip off that Band-Aid. He's the one, essentially.
Okay.
Dane is Neo, and...
he sees the code now.
Yes, he sees the code. He kind of sees behind the facade of the universe.
Okay.
And he's becoming more enlightened and is able to, like, harness whatever is in him more appropriately. He is, to quote Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails, the Great Destroyer.
Oh, okay.
And can just, like, fuck things up by getting that Jack Frost persona to take over. And I don't really know the full extent of what he does. It seems like telekinesis and telepathy.
Well, I couldn't tell what was happening, like, after that happened when he got caught by those goons that are still in, like, their fox-catching outfits or some shit like that.
Yeah.
Mayhem breaks loose.
He makes everything happen.
Yes! And I was like,
yeah.
I don't know, like, is that just, like, because they're like, oh, fuck, they're cars with no drivers, and I'm like, are they actually there, or are they not? I have no fucking idea.
I'm with you on this, Neil, like, because you bring up the Matrix saying, like, oh, of course, like, that makes the Neo reference. He sees how everything all works.
Yeah.
He's outside of it now. But, like, when I was reading it, I was like,
Yeah.
So, how's he doing that?
Yeah.
Is that rocking his head from those little green men?
Yeah.
Is that doing something now?
But is it a real rock in his head? Or is it a metaphysical rock?
Regardless of what it is.
Doesn't matter.
How's he making those light things burst open and cars catch fire and all these guys are like, ooh, it's carbon monoxide.
It's like carbon monoxide was their main concern. They all got real sleepy.
They're all outside.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cars, though. It's not like he put them in the car with a fucking hose into the window.
Yeah. To my understanding, he did do all of these things. They physically happened. He just has this ability, I guess.
Okay.
That is like his Jack Frost fiction suit that he was able to channel or summon to do that.
Okay.
And him and Sir Miles have like a mind battle, and then Dane like basically says like, "All right, fuck off, I'm out of here."
Yeah.
Or whatever. Jog on.
Yeah.
And he's out, and he leaves, and Sir Miles is like, "Oh fuck, this kid means business." Because they were going to try to recruit him. They're like, "Oh, I see you left the Invisibles, what?" Why don't you come on over here? We'll get you all the whores and cars. Come on. You can firebomb everything.
Hey, boy, come here. I see you. And, maybe you come to our side of the bitch. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, so...
And then the patented kick to the face that he perfected on his teacher.
Yeah.
I do love that Sir Miles can only offer him physical things.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can have anything you want.
Yeah.
Money. Women,
cars,
yeah, yep. where it's like
You can hunt whores in cars!
that is the extent of where their imagination goes.
Yeah.
Just like the creeps at Castle Shilling. They only know what to do with physical things. Nothing beyond that.
Yeah.
And Dane tells them to fuck off.
Yeah.
Just like he did the aliens, essentially. The aliens were like, you're the one. You are gonna save the world. They basically spell it out for him. They say like...
by leaving out very specific words that you should probably know.
I believe everything that was just white space, I think is Barbalith. I think that's just...
sometimes it's filled in.
It's Barbalith.
Not everything can just be Barbalith, Dave.
Can't it? There were a couple other things from that moment, because like those 3 pages of his weird alien abduction thing, I feel like are big fucking red flags on where this whole thing is kind of going.
Okay.
Even though it's through this really like
Awesome
literal lens. They tell Dane that he's the chosen one, that the world is dying, that he can lead everyone to global peace and harmony. He tells them to fuck off. They show him the truth, and it's a Mobius loop.
Mm-hmm.
And they say,
What side are you
which
on?
side are you on? Which, by the very nature of the Mobius loop, it's on one side.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then they say the soul is not in the body is inside the soul. To which, I took this note last night after I had an edible, and I spent...
Fucking blew your mind?
No, it yes, it did. I had to reread this so many fucking times to make any sense out of this, and I went to our friend Patrick Meany's book, and he says, humanity is part of a larger entity. We're cells who think we're a body. I'm like, and in my state, I was like, what? So I even wrote myself a note in parentheses. When we're all one collective group of life, we're not individuals. Everything we can be is traced back to one single origin. So like everything in humanity, every living thing, eventually, if you rewind time, comes to that first thing that crawled out of the ocean, and then that thing that was that.
It's
and
like
just,
that Frank Quietly drawing that you see every single moment. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
It's that. And it's the sense that, like, we're all part of that. We think we're individuals, but we're all actually just essentially this one being spread out over millennia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is a really fucking interesting way of perceiving all life on Earth.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of like astronomers and physicists particularly like to look at things like that too, which I find very interesting. I know like Michio Kaku and like Neil deGrasse Tyson of all what name dropping.
Thought you did an Aztec god. I thought you did a summoning. We didn't even do a banishing ritual first.
But they've all had specific instances of that exact thing. Like, do you guys know how large the universe is? And you're just like this small speck, but
yeah,
that is the most, like, that's so special. I like that.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
There's so much outside of our own perception and sense of self, but also something very unique that we give ourselves a sense of self in that, like, you can find harmony in, like, a personal enlightenment, too.
Mm-hmm.
You can achieve peace through, like, yourself while still being part of a larger entity. I don't know. I think that's kind of like a dualism there.
Yep.
Troy, you look like you're on the verge of something. Leaving the room?
I'm trying to process all of this, but I'm having many errors.
Yes. This whole idea of that we're all part of one superorganism is something that plays a massive role in the Invisibles, and I think is a very interesting look at all of existence as a whole.
Mm-hmm. I like how in this too, I can't remember who's having the conversation. It might have been that old woman who's like King Mob's making him smoke all this reefer to get knowledge out of her or whatever.
Edith.
So I think they're talking at one point where it's like, okay, Dane, Jack Frost is gone, I like how they're trying to rationalize, like, what he's doing as a part of becoming one of the Invisibles. Like, he's just a rebel. So, like, he's gonna rebel against everything until he finds that one particular spot where he's supposed to, like, settle into.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of cool, and, like, how that ties into this issue specifically on where he's gonna fit into the larger picture.
He's kind of blurring the lines. Because he's not the fucking outer church, obviously, but he's also not, like, all in on the Invisibles either.
Yeah.
He can almost see it beyond where they see it. And I feel like a lot of that is when he killed that soldier and he was like, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
And he, like, perceives life as precious, whereas they don't fucking care. They're just at war.
Yeah.
We end the issue and the collection with Dane going to a locker that Tom O'Bedlam left for him.
Old Grandpa Seth left.
Yeah. He recounts his final teaching from Tom, which amounts to one simple word: disobedience. And then Dane grabs a nondescript package that Tom left for him, cuts his hair, and hitches to Liverpool. And that's where it ends. And I like to imagine that that package that Tom left for him was just the t-shirt and pair of scissors.
Yeah. So,
And that was
honestly,
what it was.
that is kind of what I took it as.
I did on the first reading, and then when I went back to the notes, I was like, it couldn't have been just that. Like, there's something in that bag, right? It wasn't just like, Dan, you need to cut your hair, mate.
Yeah.
What if he just cut up the t-shirt and was like, well, now what?
With that, we conclude Volume 2, Session 2 of The Invisibles, brought to you by the Invisible College.
Yeah.
King Mob and Fanny are within the clutches of the Outer Church. Dane has learned to harness his powers and sets forth on an unknown directive. All the while, Boy and Robin wander aimlessly with nothing at all to do.
They are still there.
Yes. They have not been written out of this story. I think this was a very, very good volume. It moves the main narrative forward. It also fleshes out the characters far more than we have in previous issues, and fills in the universe as a whole, where we're able to spend time with seemingly inconsequential characters who have been impacted by the conflict in the heart of the story.
I do think this read I got more out of the book than the last one. It's still some of the existential stuff that I'm still not me, like, shutting out all supplementary material. I'm like reading it such as like I would read like Doom Patrol. Like,
Yeah, you're the common man. You're the Bobby.
I
Just trying to provide.
Yeah.
Hoping
At
to
least
get
I
a
don't get my nut
headshot
shot.
rather than a nut shot.
but
Your head, gun your ball.
So all the weird things that happen, like, it's hard for me to sometimes be like, well, is this weird for weird's sake, or is he saying more with this? Because Doom Patrol was definitely like weird for weird's sake to be fun.
Yeah. Yes.
And this, sometimes I'm like, I just kind of want this to be fun, but do I think about it more? Sometimes I do, sometimes I do not want to.
Yeah. I would say, in the defense of Doom Patrol, it was weird for weird's sake, but the weirdness usually was something.
No, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But it was aimed for fun.
Yes.
Whereas this is aimed for deeper meaning.
Sometimes I don't want that.
I did. Well,
Sometimes.
you're reading the wrong book.
But otherwise, I had fun with this.
Yeah,
one.
this was a good one.
We're going to turn it back to Cody Walker one last time. Any last thoughts on Volume 2 before we close the proverbial book?
What you got there, Cody?
Let's talk about initiation. Later on, in Volume 6, we're going to think about who the main character is of the Invisibles. For now, I just want you to think about initiation. Okay? What are the initiating events that the characters have to become invisible? And I also want you to think about, and this is your homework assignment, to think about a religious or otherworldly experience that you have had. What is something that has affected you deeply to where you feel like that's the moment where I, became invisible, where I saw through. And if you haven't had that experience yet, that's okay. I think we all have those really highly emotional moments. So think about yours and maybe write about it and talk about it. For this volume, of course, we have two major initiative moments. The biggest one is Lord Fanny's, where we see all of Lord Fanny's backstory and how she became who she is. But I always think of that moment being juxtaposed with the final issue of this volume, which is Dane's big initiative moment, the alien abduction, and thinking about Barbalith. Think about both of those. Think about the comparisons and contrasts of higher power and us visiting the higher power and interacting with them. And then apply that to your own life. In what way have you had that larger emotional experience? So that's my challenge for you for this one.
So, with that, we're going to wrap class. I just heard the bell. It would be the stomping upstairs.
Yep.
If you would like to join the conversation more, there is an Invisibles College Discord.
That's right.
We had it at the top of the show there. You can find a link to that in the description. And if you want to join our personal Imperius Rex Discord, you can have access to that through our Patreons.
If you'd like merchandise, we've got that available at redbubble.com, where you can go visit that. You can get a shirt that has just Troy and Dave on it, and not me.
And if you're Neil, you can wear it.
You
and
can
have
wear
a
it,
whole
and
crew.
it'll make sense. Yeah, exactly.
We need to make some Invisible College merch.
Yeah.
I think that's on the to-do list. Yeah. We've got our whole lives ahead of us.
Yeah.
Unless that
I would
Aztec
love to have
Death God.
a shirt somewhat like this where Dave is like, and Neil is like, okay, and I'm just like, oh,
You're gonna lay on the floor.
He's coming out of my mouth.
That would be good.
Get my balls shot off.
We should have just a shirt that shows all of us in our best sense of selves, our fiction suits, and yours is under the pose. Oh, my lordy. So with all that, big thanks, as always, to Cody Walker, our guest lecturer.
Yeah.
To our patrons who are supporting the show, our viewers, those who've enrolled in the Invisible College, those who haven't, Lisa Crowley for the theme song, Patrick Meany for inspiration behind the Invisible College itself through this book, and
viewers like you.
That's right. Oh, just you. And as I've said before, you both for joining me on this journey. So next class session, join us for Volume 3, Entropy in the UK.
All right. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, I've been Short of the Max Extreme.
I've been Dinosaur Neil.
And I've been Ghost Hunter Dave.
And we've been Imperius Rex. Class dismissed.
And remember, disobedience.
And watch your balls. Don't get them shot off. That would be a bad time. Bad way to go.
Heavens to Murgatoid, yes.
Going to the fiction suit idea, the way I'm going to define it, I'm going to pull Super Gods back out here, and I'm going to go to page 117 in the first paperback edition. And first paragraph that starts there, Grant talks about Stanley and Jack Kirby could send drawn versions of themselves into the created world of Fantastic Four, and those little drawings of Stan and Jack were like angels, UFOs, avatars from a higher universe, entering a world they'd made to interact with its inhabitants. They created, as I came to call them, fiction suits, like space suits for sending yourself into stories. The comics page, like the movie screen, took us through a story in a straight linear progression from past read to present reading and future completion. But the comics page was a more personal and intimate interface than the cinema screen. It lacked the intimidating luster of the movies, and the images could be slowed down, rewound, fast-forwarded, and studied in detail. They could even be copied, traced, or improved upon, making this an ideal DIY medium for the imaginative and reasonably gifted. The pace of a film or television show was dictated by its director. The comics allowed its reader to direct their own experience of the story. This is where I started splitting hairs before with respect to Cody for indicating perhaps the outfit that I am wearing right now, which is my self-proclaimed Dr. Destiny of Earth 33 getup. When I go into this mode, I'm full on Dr. Destiny, right? And maybe I don't fully go there, all the time. Maybe it's just on Halloween for trick or treat to entertain the kids in the neighborhood. But is that a fiction suit? Maybe to an extent, maybe to more of an extent than I gave Cody credit for. Because I've gone back and I know where I was coming from was a mindset of, hey, be careful what you do with this. It's important to know what you're dealing with, because I do take it seriously based on my experiences. But there's, to paraphrase or maybe quote Confucius, allegedly, the beginning of wisdom is to call things by their proper name. Okay, well, I can do that. I also don't want to be much of a perennialist about it. And I think there's absolutely benefit to this approach, whether this is shamanic costume in some form or whether this is a fiction suit. There's still that principle paraphrased from the Emerald Tablet: as above, so below. What I take that to mean is we get a self-reflective cycle here. And I shared on the Discord and the Magic section about some experiences I had recently since the book club started up, where I went on one of those journeys, one of those invocation experiments. And it has gotten to the point where, I've experienced full on, Thoth is in here along for the ride. Horus is in here along for the ride. Metron from Kirby's Fourth World is in here along for the ride, whatever it is at the time. The most recent time I went back to the Multiversity Ultra Comics exactly phases with this. I was getting myself into a real, altered consciousness, elevated consciousness state. I was trying to get into that unified perfective self or holy guardian angel self space of Tiphareth, the sixth Sephiroth, where all that ego gets stripped away and our most perfect version of, what's projected out into the material world, that deep soul self and beneath, free of all the baggage we've accumulated in life and able to show up as our best selves, our Superman selves. I was going strongly for that. So I called on one of my particular frequent contacts that has good connection to Tiphareth, as well as the more martial and strength Sephiroth. But when I started getting into it, I realized I actually had to go down. And I had to access one of my own fiction suits, as I was agreeing with the haunter, the monster in the comic, and bring up my version of Father Time that I came up with just in a little writing project. That allowed me in that higher consciousness experience to basically win, to outmaneuver my opponent in that place and time. The thing that was haunting in that non-material, but in an imaginary, in a fictional, or in a thought realm sense, everybody just is real space. Where that applies to fiction suits is Father Time down below. Here's the other thing, though. I'm the fiction suit too, because I'm calling on these higher consciousness level intermediaries between the unified whole of existence, the blind man and or blind men and the elephant, all of them feeling a different part, finding a different path to that same big collective of consciousness, of information, of matter and energy, whatever it is, the before the Big Bang and the after Big Bang. We make contact with that in different ways, and that's a lot of what I've experienced, a lot of what I believe. So if I'm bringing that into me, I'm the fiction suit for that.
Especially in Volume 2, the Season of Ghouls, I feel like might be a very good illustration of that, where Jim Crow summons Papa, how would you pronounce it, Gady?
Papa Gede is how I've heard it, yeah.
And it seemed to me that he was summoning Papageti just as much as Papageti was almost wearing Jim Crow to go about what he needed to do. It was almost a symbiotic relationship there.
Exactly. And that was the first place my mind went as I started going into volume 2, and you had asked me to, to contribute to this is, this is where, in a way, yeah, I was right, but Cody was also right. When I'm talking about these higher consciousness experiences, I think She-Man, the 3-part She-Man arc, is fantastic as is Season of Ghouls. But both of them are fantastic for illustrating the way in which a practicing magus or witch or whatever title we choose to impart upon ourselves might engage with these different levels of consciousness, these different realms, the immateria, as Moore calls it in Promethea. And in its way, it is imaginary, absolutely. But in its way, it has as much existence as any amount of data. A big Grant Morrison thesis that I've taken away from their work is there are entire universes in here, right? I mean, anybody that can, even if we're not coming up with our own version of continuity or building our own stories, anybody that gets into comics, superhero comics in particular, probably has a pretty vast cosmological knowledge of at least one franchise. We can store that in here. And if we apply the concept which Morrison seems to seriously do, that we can get into a fiction suit the way that a scuba diver can get into a scuba suit and engage with those worlds. Lucid dreams that we might experience once or twice in our lives, or often in our lives, some people do. Are those any less real than our waking life? Definitely take the materialist absolute standpoint, but that seems like more of an outer church move to me. So I don't know. I'm thinking about things better, whether I'm right or wrong, where there's a lot more out there. Ghost Hunter, Dr. Destiny signing out.
We're covering issues 9 through 18, which feature several character-centric one-off issues.
9 through 18.
16. You want more take of that?
I was like, I didn't read it all.
I'm just keeping you on your toes. Everyone just collectively shit. Alright. Okay. This guy isn't a total piece of shit. Like, he does care for the people. He used to be. Slicked back.
Slicked now it's just off.
It's just pushed back.
Despite all his beans.
Yeah, he's still just a rat in some jeans. We are a show of stupid inside jokes. Get on our level.
Did anyone have more than that, or can I continue on my track?
I think you topped out rat in jeans.
All right. I feel like I have to piss again already.
I didn't take that long in there.
How long were you there? 20 minutes? All I've had today is coffee and wine and 2 beers. 3 now. Can I get one more?
You bet.
Can I get one of them Sues?
Sues?
Unless, are they all good?
Nope.
You sure?
I just know I had that one in my hand.
Okay. Sue.
There we go.
That one's pretty good.
Yeah, I like that.
That was pretty good. What you got there, Cody?
Alright.
I was waiting forever to say that one.